Sup, nerds? Welcome to Drunk Volta. Hey. Oh. Hey. It's for the big one. It's gonna be a long one. What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your boy Justicar Lager, and you guys know what happened. We have already gotten the full Codex leaks for Codex Great Knights 10th edition. Yeah. All right, today I'm going to be drinking Woodford Reserve because I'm treating myself. I spent all night last night making a video about rumors that were immediately, mostly proven true, but immediately, that video is left in the dust because mere 12 hours later, the full leak comes out. So I spent the last 7 hours after work tonight getting my new research together for this full video to give you guys my first impressions of it. So I went through every detachment. I tried to find the best combos I could. I compared it against Warpbane. We've got damage output numbers against knights we're going to go over. We're going to go over all the data sheet changes. We're going to go step by step through each detachment, the enhancements, the stratagems, the army rules, the combos I see, the viability, specifically focused on the current knight meta because it looks like we're not going to get Emergence Day slate anytime soon, potentially. Um, and just kind of how everything stacks up and what the outlook is, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, what's great knights. And with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. I'll have a sip of this. Cheers. Ooh, that's Woodford, all right. And you know what? Go dogs. Go dogs, baby. How about them? Oh. All right, so the GK full codex leak, as we've talked about. Let's go for the day sheet updates first. Let's see what happens. Oh, I like the sound of this, guys. The Dead Fields. Who's going to Legends? All right, so going to Legends, we have some that we all knew was going to happen. Brother Captain Stern, everyone thought that one. Servitors, and of course the Tech Brown. What? Supreme Grandmaster KALDOR DRAIGO? What? Yeah, guys, it is unfortunate that Mr. Slap a Demon Drago himself, aka K Dog, aka the GOAT, aka the best Supreme Grandmaster of all time, has passed on into the warp for the final time and is now Legends. We're sad to see him go. I've got mine right here. I changed my list for a tournament that lists caps Friday, and is going to be actually next weekend. So before GK Codex is live, I think at any rate the rules cap will be. So it'll be my last time running Warpbane in a tournament, last time doing Index GK data sheets, and my last time maybe ever playing with KALDOR Drago. So pouring out for KALDOR, K Dog, you were the best of us. All right, moving on. We have, of course, RIP KALDOR Drago, Supreme Grandmaster 48, 5th edition to 10th edition. We'll see y'all. We'll see you by the Emperor's side, buddy. All right. Honorable mention about the updates, about day sheet updates. Silencers. Silencers have precisions now. That is all. I mean, it's a nice attempt to differentiate the silencer. It doesn't really do much for them, except in one interesting combo that includes an Interrogation Squad that I'll talk about later. All right, no change data sheets. These data sheets did not change at all to my knowledge. Maybe there's something small I missed, but generally these are exactly the same. Storm Raven, Stormhawk, Storm Talon, all flyers, all useless. All the Land Raiders are the same. Less useless now in Sanctic, which we'll talk about when we get there. Nemesis Dread Knight actually kept its advanced shoot and charge ability, even though Sanctic gives you assault. They don't. This one specifically doesn't need it. I guess that's more for the Land Raiders and GM and DKs, I guess. But also, Nemesis Dread Knight cannot use any of the new shooting weapons, including the nipple missiles and the Subliminator, or either the flail or the mace. Those are all locked just to the GM and DK data sheet. So the Nemesis Dread Knight data sheet stayed exactly the same from the index. And Scepter squads are still the same. They shoot and scoot. Strike squad, scout, and sticky. All right, minor changes. Our rhinos no longer heal one wound like normal Space Marine rhinos in the command phase. Now they give 6+ field of paint to mortals for any GK unit wholly within 6 inches. So it's almost like they all got a little shard of K Dog when he dusted off into the warp for the last time. He spilled a little warp cocaine out of his pocket and sprinkled it on the fleet of the armada of rhinos to protect the boys one last time. That's not really going to come up that much. It's a weird one to include. Honestly, the +1 wound heal is probably better, but I forgot about that most of the time I was playing Rhinos anyway. Razorbacks lose the shoot a target, and the boys that hopped out that were inside of you reroll wounds against it. Instead, now it's the same kind of mechanic. It shoots at the boys that hopped out get this, but they get +1 AP. That is kind of a downgrade in current meta because the wounds kind of help the purgation units and like servitors punch up, which are also gone anyway, punch up into armigers, and now it's AP. It is a downgrade for this meta, but it's more of a side grade overall because if we switch back to an infantry meta, AP2 Psy Cannons and AP2 Incinerators and even AP1 Silencers could see some viability. And there's also a way to buff those by another pip of AP in one of the attachments we'll talk about later. So potentially AP3 Incinerators and AP3 Psy Cannons. But again, against Armigers, that doesn't really matter that much currently. The reroll wounds would be better. Purgation squads, I'd call this a minor change. It is a major change, it just doesn't matter. They don't have indirect fire anymore, which you weren't using it anyway because you would lose your Warbane rerolls for that. But now, instead, if they hit a enemy unit that's not a monster or a vehicle, they do the -2 to move and charge thing. So, could be good against World Eaters. Current meta, doesn't matter. All right, major data sheet changes. It's Morbin time because these data sheets have morbed up. Some for the better and some for the worse. Let's talk about it. All right, Purifiers. They lost the +1 to hit if they're below full strength, +1 to move if they're below half strength. What they gained, however, is essentially permanent sanctified kill zone against units on objectives. They got the Chaos CSM Legionnaire rule. They reroll once to wound always, and they reroll all wounds against targets on objectives. So I mean, that's pretty good. You want to be using it to trade big pieces off of objectives anyway. Essentially now, in their most important activations, they just get Sanctified Kill Zone for free in all detachments. Really improves their usability throughout all detachments in this book and every detachment outside of Warbane. Another thing is that Purifying Flame is up from AP1 ignore cover to AP2 ignore cover. That's absolutely massive for the Crow Brick with its 24 Purifying Flame shots. Not to mention, that will always reroll wounds against units on objectives in all detachments, but it's AP2 ignore cover now, which means that even if your opponent pops Armor of Contempt, he's not going to save on a 2 against that. There's no possible way. So that's a huge, huge buff for Purifiers. My takeaways are this is a huge glow up for Purifiers in every detachment. The extra AP on Purified Flame is huge against units that have an AOC or something like that. All right, now we talk about Purifiers. Let's talk about their main man, Castellan Crow. He still buffs their Purifying Flame shot, so he's still essentially the same guy. But a few things have changed. He lost his damage blank, which kind of sucks because it was fun to be annoying and be like, ooh, I'm not dead. Now I fall back, and then I kill that unit with something else, and now I'm a one-man unit up, B, downing the rest of the game. You're not going to do that anymore. The damage blank per turn is gone entirely. He has no defensive mechanic. Instead, now each time he makes an attack that charges a territory unit, he can reroll the hit roll. So he has reroll the hit roll against character units. I don't think he got reroll the wound roll as well, but he got half of the Bro Champ's current rule. And maybe he got the wound roll as well. I might be mistaken on that, but he just kind of got, he still has precision, still has dev wounds. He has reroll hit rolls against characters personally. That's about it. He lost the damage blank, and really now he's just a dev wound sword guy that busts his squad's Purifying Flame, and that's it. But say la vie. Maybe he'll go down on points. Probably not, because Purifiers are cracked. The Vindred, he actually got a lot better. He lost his dumb reroll once to hit for infantry within 6 thing. Instead, he gained the army rule. He can actually uppy down, which means he can be played potentially somewhat, right? So you can pick him up with your Gates of Affinity and use him around the board. He now selects one target he hit in shooting and gives +1 to hit to all friendly GK shooting targets or shooting units that phase. So if you use the Vindred to hit something in shooting after uppy downy, you can uppy downy it anywhere on the board. Shoot its multi-melt as after uppy downy. You're not in melting range, but still shoot a multi-melt to shoot a Stormbolter, or across the map shoot a Stormbolter and a las cannon, or uppy downy shoot an assault cannon just to make sure you get a hit. Whatever you want to do. Long story short is you probably don't do any damage, but after that, your entire army is going to be hitting on 2s into that guy, whether it's your Land Raiders, whether it's your Insanity, which we'll talk about, whether it's your heavy side cannons, if you're doing a Dread Knight spam thing, but that's not the best nowadays. Even your giant Crow of Fire Brick that you just dropped down next to him, not only are they rerolling wounds against that unit that's on an objective, not only is their Purifying Flame AP2 and more cover now, but they're also hitting on 2s thanks to this Vindred that uppy down next to him. So major glow up for Stumpy Boy. I think you take at least one in almost every list build you can do. My Banisher build doesn't have him in it yet, but I might find a way to sneak him in there. And in Sanctify, in the vehicle detachment, I think you take 2 and maybe even 3 if you really want to. Where his buff really does the most work is for those Land Raiders we'll talk about in a bit. All right, Paladins. Paladins, another big glow up. They lost the -1 to win your strength by the toughness thing. Instead, they gained Apothecaries. They have the Narthessium. They're resin Terminators in the command phase, just like the Brother Terminators. Okay, that was their biggest L that they had before. Also, when they charge, they get +1 damage. Okay, so they're going to be charging their AP2 is already pushing invuls for units that don't have the AOC, and now they're charging and getting to damage 3 with all their attacks hitting on 2s because they're freaking paladins, and every failed save is going to kill like a custodian guardsman or an opposing terminator that has 3 wounds, not a death shroud terminator because we got to have 4 wounds with a death card, whatever. But it's a major buff to go up to damage 3 on the charge for them. Now, I'll say this: the damage 3, the +1 damage does not apply to their attached characters. Because we'll talk about the Grandmaster can go Super Saiyan and do this and that. I guess they didn't want him going into damage 3 with all his like extra attacks he gets and shit, but it does just apply to the paladins. But a 10 brick of paladins with 40 attacks hitting on 2s with damage 3, they have ways to get lethals and sustain, which we'll talk about later. They'll actually have 2 ways to get lethal: one with the character, one with the attachment. And we'll talk about Termies next. But Termies actually lost their lethals on charge in favor of something else, so neither of them have lethals innately. Without both of them have the same way to get lethals. Um, Termies are still one more OC. Paladins hit on 2s. Paladins go to damage 3 on the charge. Paladins get to have 5 side cannons in a 10 brick. Paladins are finally distinctively better than Terminators in 10th edition for the first time. And we'll have to see how much more points they cost to see if it's really worth it. But right now, in all my mock lists, I have Paladins, and I don't really have Terminators in any of them. So that's one thing about Paladins. And then talking about Terminators. So as we said, Terminators lost lethals on the charge, which hurts, but they do have 2 ways to get them back. One's just an attachment rule, and one's having a character attached, same way the Paladins do. What they gained is +1 AP in combat versus non-monsters and vehicles. Now, a good thing about this is that it's always on. It's not just on the charge. So if they are charged, they still get +1 AP in combat as well into infantry or mounted or beast or something like that. The problem is, this doesn't really help them punch into monsters and vehicles like the lethals did, but it's more of a side grade because they didn't really lose the lethals. They're just not on their data sheet anymore, and then they gained this +1 AP thing. Also, it's specified that their ancients can indeed have special weapons. So in a squad of 5, you get 1 side cannon on a Terminator and 1 side cannon on an ancient. In the index, it didn't specifically say that for them like they did for Paladins. It was kind of like wordy about it. And then in the app, there was no way to actually put the second side cannon on the ancient. So a lot of people, including myself, weren't playing it that way, even though some argued rules as written, it was supported. Now, whether your ancient is a Paladin or he's a Terminator, Brotherhood Terminator, he can have whatever special weapon he wants, which is pretty cool. So they kind of got more of a side grade, and I think they still have a place because they do have more OC, and there's one interaction where they actually help their attached character more than the Paladins do, and we'll talk about that when it comes up. All right, the Brotherhood Tech Marine. Glad you're still here, buddy. He lost the separation of his +1 to hit and heal ability. Those are both 1 ability now, so he picks 1 vehicle for +1 to hit and heal instead of 2 vehicles and giving 1 to each potentially, which no one was probably doing anyway. He lost his plasma cutter in both melee and in shooting, so that's 2 less attacks there. The servo arm went down from 2 attacks to 1 attacks, so he now has 5 attacks total, 4 from his axe, 1 from his servo arm, meaning that the Radiant Techno is dead. There's no more like 8 mortals from a Radiant Tech Marine in Warbane. He just has 5 attacks, period. That's it now. Which is honestly the only thing he was cute for. He wasn't good for anything, but he was at least cute for that. Especially, he did not get his rule for augmenting vehicles changed the movement phase, so he still cannot uppy downy and then augment vehicles. It is in the command phase. He got a grab pistol now and a forge bolter instead of the guns he used to have. Really, James. My only takeaway here is James Workshop. Why couldn't you have killed the Brotherhood Tech Marine instead? The wrong kid died. All right, moving on. Chaplain. Chaplain sucks now. He lost +1 to wound for the boys. He even lost his -1 leadership award. That's his OC, but it was leadership. And what he gained is he gives the boys reroll charges. Great. And once per battle, he gets to unbattle shock a friendly Grey Knights unit within 12 inches at the start of any phase. Whatever. That's a major L. Honestly, he needs to drop to like 50 points for anyone to even consider taking him. And at that point, it would just be because he's a cheap vessel for some enhancement they want to take. So at 75 points, even now, he is like way, way too overcosted. He's like a piece of floating trash that can hold an enhancement. Brotherhood Champion, he lost his fight's first thing, and he lost his reroll hit and wounds against character units. Instead, he gained advance and charge, and he gives you 1 CP and goes up +1 attacks every time he kills a character. He starts with 5 attacks, and this just keeps going. So if you kill like 3 characters, you end up with 8 attacks. But for one thing, that's not going to happen because he lost his reroll hits and wounds. For another thing, He's got advance and charge, but he can still only lead strike marines and purgation units. If he had advance and charge and could lead the new and crazily improved purifiers, we'd be cooking. But as is, he's totally dead. He was an obscure pick before, just for like a brick of 10 OC guys that were like, ooh, in some matchups you can't get me off an objective because you're gonna charge me, then I fights first, and then you're not gonna have that much stuff left after that. But now that he doesn't fights first, he's essentially dead on arrival. Again, there is one thing where he's kind of cute in an attachment we'll talk about, leading a purgation unit actually, but it's just because he can hold the enhancement there. So depending on how his points totals come out, even in that interaction, he's not going to be worth it because it's not that good of an interaction. It's just kind of fun. So again, this guy and the chaplain are both just kind of cheap pieces of shit to hold enhancements, or maybe they're not. They should be. Librarian. All right, guys. You guys want to feel psychic? This is our most psychic unit. This is the king of the psychers right here, the Grey Knight's Librarian, the most psychic space marine in the galaxy. According to our lore, every Grey Knight's Librarian is psychically powerful enough to be the master of librarians in any other space marine chapter. And he lost his psychic power. So there's no more Vortex of Doom, at least not as we know it. There is no Slinging Mortals at all from any data sheet abilities in this book. The Librarian has lost the Vortex of Doom, and that really held us together for a long time. The edition I actually just started using it. I'm going to use it in my last tournament of the old rules coming up in a week on August 2nd or whatever. So pour one out and drinks up to the not only KALDOR DRAIGO, but also the Vortex of Doom. He also lost his Purge Soul shooting attack, whatever. The Vortex of Doom is now his shooting attack. It's D6 plus 3 attacks with Blast, hitting on 3s, Strength 8, AP 2, Damage 2. That's pretty good into like Space Marines and stuff, but it's just a problem that no one is running basic Marine body units right now. So it's a really, really, really a huge downgrade from doing an average of 4 mortals just by looking at a big knight or an armiger. It's really ass. And then his other abilities that he gives his unit 18 inches of low knob. Let me make sure I'm recording still. Yeah, 18 inches, not 12, 18. This might be a controversial take, but to me, 18-inch low knob might as well not exist. If I want to shoot you, and we're in like turn 2, definitely by turn 3, I'm like 85 to 100% within 18 inches of you already. It's the most useless rule possible. He lost his Vortex of Doom. He's given 18-inch low knob for a turn and a half to a squad of Terminators that is a melee unit anyway, so they want to get into combat and move up close to the enemy. So I think he's also dead on arrival. The Chaplain, the Brochamp, and the Librarian are all ass now. Brother Captain, this guy actually got a bit of a level up. So he doesn't give sustain to his squad psychic weapons anymore. Instead, he gives his squad lethals always, not just when they charge. He gives his squad lethals in melee always, which is honestly a bit of a. It's better than the term he's lethals on charge, because it was always like, oh, I got charged, I don't have my lethals. Now you get the lethals always. He's by far the best generic character. He still personally rerolls wounds with his own psychic weapons, but nothing changed there. 4 attacks with Nemesis Force weapon, 3 attacks with the Psy Cannon. He is our best generic character, giving lethals always, and he gives the lethals back to the Termies. He gives the lethals to the Paladins for the first time. I mean, the Paladins not only damage 3 hitting on 2s, but also lethals. And in one of the detachments, you can actually do a leadership test to get sustained as well. So in that detachment, he can still give his squad lethals and sustained every turn, not just on the charge. And then with Fleeting Paladins on the charge, they go to damage 3. So that is a nice little fun little combo right there. The Grandmaster, he lost his ignore modifiers. His weird discount strat thing that was once per battle has finally changed to a normal one that's once per battle round. However, it is the same name as the ability on the GM Indicate data sheet now, and it says that one unit with this ability can use this once per turn. So either you can either have a Grandmaster on foot or a Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knight use the free strat ability once per turn. He also got his kind of like finest hour thing, where once per battle he increases his attacks and strength by 3 in melee, which is nice. I do like it with the strength and attacks by 3. By default, he's going to 9 attacks at strength 9, AP 2, damage 2. And there are a few enhancements you can take in a couple of attachments that bump it up a lot louder. So that's fun there. Ignore mods I never found to be too useful unless I was playing like my friend who plays Necrons always brings Satans. Unless we were going to Satan meta, it didn't really matter that much. There are a few enhancements that juice up. I just said that. And then blah, blah, blah. Yeah, one way. So I think I glazed over this, but Terminators and paladins can both be taken in 4s, 5s, 8s, or 10s now, which is nice because they all have different points value. So if you can't fit a 10, maybe you can fit an 8 or something. Um, but the only place I really like a 4-man Terminator is with the Grandmaster, and because then they're just like his extra wounds for his own power up. And also, the Terminator interaction I was talking about before that's actually better than Paladins is with the Grandmaster, because the Paladin's damage 3 does not apply to him, but the Terminator's AP 3 does apply to him. So if he's with Terminators, he would get his power up and then go up to AP 3 as well against non-monsters vehicle units. So I like the Grandmaster in a minimum squad with Terminators. Probably not Knights meta, but once that's over, that might be a viable little fun thing, especially in some of these detachments where he can get even more. Like there's one attachment talk about where he gets on top of this 3 attacks and strength, another 4 strength on top of that, making him strength 13. Potentially AP3 is attached to Terminator's damage too. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Voldis, he didn't lose anything. He still has his -1 to hit. He has his hammer thing. His hammer thing with the flame actually goes off on 2s and 3s now, only for 1 mortal wound. But previously, it didn't go off on a 1 through 3 at all, so that's better. Previously, it was like on a 4, you get D3 with a 2+ modifier if it's against a demon unit. Now the 4 and the 6 bracket are the same, but on 2s and 3s, you get 1 mortal instead of nothing, unless you were going to demons before. He also has our only strength 12 shooting attack for some fucking reason. It's D3 plus 1 shots with ballistic skill 2, strength 12, AP 2 damage 2 with dev wounds. Sure, I'll take it. I'll take it. The buffs are pretty small and inconsequential. The gun thing is nice, but it's not enough to do anything, to move the needle. And then if you're running him, you're still running from the -1 to hit, which is still a solid ability. So he'll see some play about as much as he did before. If he drops in points, he could see more play. But I'm not planning to use him in my lists. If you're running like a Terminator all day, try to kill me if you can, you probably would use him. The GM DK, this is the last data sheet. He kind of has a side grade to his, like I said, his CP ability. So his weird CP ability that made 2 CP stratagems cost 1 CP, but didn't make 1 CP stratagems free is gone. Now he just gets the free strat ability that every other unit in the game has, but it is shared with the GM. So if he uses it, the GM can't, and if the GM uses it, he can't, and if another GM NDK uses it, he can't use it either. So one model total gets to use the ability in a turn. He also gained his reroll hits, wounds, and damage against monsters, vehicles, and melee. Not limited to once per unit per turn anymore. So if you have 3 GM NDKs and they're all in melee with opposing vehicles, they can all reroll everything. So that is actually a pretty sizable buff. That is like very nice right there. Again, unfortunately, in 4x4 Big Knight meta, these GM NDKs still don't really do enough damage when compared to our massive melee Purifier bricks and Paladins and Terminators. So if we go more into a place where the Big Knights get nerfed and then the Armiger spam is back, not only does the melee matter a lot, but their new guns will matter a lot more as well. So GM NDK will actually be a very good unit and severely upgraded for that kind of meta. Against 4x4 Big Knights, he's not doing much. Let's talk about his new guns then. He got nipple rockets. He got a frag storm, grenade launcher, whatever. D6 blast shots. It's not psychic. Hits on 3, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. Cool. He gets it for free. Why not? The Subliminator. 2 attacks. Hitting on 3s. Strength 9. Told y'all. It's just a Melta. AP 4, damage D6 at 18-inch range. So it's literally a multi-Melta. However, it is Melta 4 and twin linked, which is nice. Now, 18-inch range means you have to be within 9 inches to get Melta 4, so you can't deep strike and do it. You have to move and do it. Now, in Sanctic, he does auto advance 6 and get assault, so that is possible. But it's only 2 shots. If the guy has an invul, he's going to save 1. If he's more than strength 9, you're only going to wound him once anyway, so it is what it is. It's nice to have. It's definitely a better upgrade over the heavy incinerator for a secondary weapon, and you can indeed take both a Subliminator and a heavy side cannon. It's still just any 2 weapons, so heavy side cannon and Subliminator with the nipple rockets is the new loadout you'll use for your GM and DKs. However, it's just kind of like a small upgrade right now. If we go out of this Big Knight meta into Armiger meta or back into Elite Infantry meta, it's a pretty sizable upgrade. The new melee weapons, I'm just going to tell you, they suck. The Flail is 10 attacks, hitting on 2s at strength 5, AP 1, damage 2. And the Nemesis Mace is 5 attacks, hitting on 2s at strength 6, AP 3, damage 3, with indicator 2+ in precision. So the Mace into a big character knight can do a maximum of 15 damage. the hammer is a lot more. It just is. So yeah, it's still hammer time, baby. The rerolls are nice, always. Subliminator is good. Second gun. This is the thing. So in Satic Spearhead, you have a +1 to wound enhancement that can be used in shooting or melee. The GM dropping in 9 inches with +1 to wound and stratagem in shooting still only does 6 damage into a Lehman Russ. So, like I said, the Subliminator is really not moving the needle on our problem of we can't shoot to kill vehicles. Still not going to happen. Only one of them can even use that +1 to wound stratagem, so the other GM are doing like 4 with their Subliminators. And all the new melee options suck. Lol, fuck you, James, for doing that kit and legending KALDOR. You should have just given us KALDOR. Fuck you. And data sheet summary for the ones that changed. So winners, Purifiers and Crow, huge winners. Purifiers are the best unit in essentially every detachment right now, in my opinion. And bringing one with Crow is a must for any serious player. Vindren is good. He's usable now. He can uppy downy. He does something for the army. He buffs shooting. You might honestly, now that I think about it, you might not take him unless you're running Sanctic, or running the reroll wants to hit and wound in an NDK span attachment. But if you're running a vehicle heavy GK list, he is a must have to augment your shooting. He improves the math so much, and you would want multiples of him. So he's really, really good in a vehicle heavy archetype, and he is like a maybe take elsewhere, but he's he at least exists now essentially. So that's good. Paladins, huge winners. My favorite unit in the book. Probably not as cost efficient as Crows as Purifiers. Now we don't have the points, but the list that I want to run in Banisher is centering around a giant tin brick of Paladins with a bro cap, getting lethal sustains every turn in melee, fucking shit up, resurrecting. I love it. I'm so glad Paladins are good again. Brother Captain, big glow up. He's the best generic character. Grandmaster, I think he's got a glow up. I like him being a little killy guy more than being a weird ignore modifiers guy. GMDK literally got only buffs. He's just in such a bad place in the meta. It doesn't feel like it because it doesn't move the needle against his biggest issue. But, we can all remember when NDKs were the shit. It was only like 4 months ago. If we end up in a meta like that again, the GMDK is literally better than that same GMDK we had then in every way. He has more guns. He has a better secondary gun. He has the same profile on his hammer and his heavy side cannon. And he can reroll his hits, wounds, and damage into monsters and vehicles all the time instead of being like, this one does it now, this one does it then. All three of them can do it in the same turn. So, and you can uppy down him, hold him for a turn, and then rapid ingress him later because the way Gate of Infinity changed over Teleport Assault. Which I don't think I went over at the start of this ability video, but if you're not aware, the Army Rule Teleport Assault has been renamed Gate of Infinity, and the only real difference, you still uppy down 3 units, but they go into real strat reserve, so you can hold them for multiple turns and then rapid ingress them later, and it just kind of opens up a lot of possibilities for rapid ingress later in the game. Side grade Terminators, they lost lethals, but they can get it back pretty easily, and the AP is cool, but it doesn't help them against vehicles, so it's more of a side grade. And then losers, Brotherhood Tech Marine, wrong kid died. Chaplain, RIP, Brotherhood Champion, and Librarian. All three, Chaplain, Brotherhood Champion, and Librarian, I feel like are just vessels for enhancements. Whichever one's is the cheapest they can attach to your unit, you want to put it on wins. And unfortunately, Brotherhood Champion is the only guy that can attach to strike squads or purgation units, so he's the guy there. All right. Oh, here we go. Army Rule Gate Infinity. I had it planned out. Whatever. Here it is. It puts you in real reserves. You can do 3 in Strike Force games. There you go. Detachment, Augurium Task Force. Now, this one I thought was the best yesterday from the preview. I've got a little bit of a different opinion now. Let's walk through it first, and then we'll go over my thoughts at the end. All right. The detachment rule, prescient redeployment. You can use one of your Gate of Infinity slots on a unit at the start of your movement phase rather than the end of your opponent's turn. So that's good. It essentially means that you've already scored your primaries. Then you can pick up a strike squad that's already sticky to an objective and drop down elsewhere. Or you can just go ahead and already look at your cards to know which unit you want to pick up before you do it. It is a good, solid rule. The enhancements, Grimoire of Conjunctions. Now, this is the funnest one for the Grandmaster on foot. Once per battle at the start of this fight phase, +4 to strength of the bear's melee weapons. This makes a Grandmaster with Grimoire using their own once per game power up, attached with Termies for AP into infantry, 8 attacks, hitting on 2s at strength 13, AP 3 damage 2. That same profile at strength at AP 2 against a vehicle. So he's doing some damage at strength 13 at later attacks. It's fucking sick. This feels like the Soul Glaive in 9th edition, and that was my favorite enhancement there. Or what are they called then? Relics. That's my favorite relic in 9th edition. Shield of Prophecy. Once per battle round, at the start of the battle round, +2 to the unit's toughness. That's really cool on terms and pallies, giving them toughness 7, but you have to do it at the start of the battle round. If you're going first, that could be kind of hard to plan out when you want to do it. You probably get a gist for it, but it'd be way better if it was at the start of a turn or at the start of any phase, maybe. Start of the battle round's tough to plan for +2 toughness, but it is still solid. If you're running Augurium, you should probably still take it. All right. 1 foot in the future. Grey Knight's model. Each time this model's unit is set up on the battlefield, your reinforcement step, it can make a normal move of d6 inches, but cannot charge. I mean, a flat number would be a lot better. Even if it was like 4 inches to steal objectives, the fact that it's d6 means you can't really count on it for what I would consider its major use case, which is I deep strike 9 inches from you, but I'm only X inches to this objective to steal it from you. I need to use this to get there. Um, yeah, I'm not going to take it because there's a chance you don't get the number you need and get left out in the open a lot of times. So I think what in the future is a no go for me. Doomseer's Amulet. Each time the bearer is set up in your reinforcement step, select one enemy unit visible within 12 inches and make them battle shock at -1. Garbage. Who cares? The stratagems. Aggressive anticipation, 1 CP. Ignore hit and ballistic skill, weapon skill modifiers in shooting your fight phase. It's actually nice into like Sangar with Dante, but it does only ignore hit roll modifiers. It does not ignore -1 to wound or ignore damage reduction. So it's very situational. Appointed Hour, 1 CP. A Green Knight Psyker unit and shooter fighting, crits on 5s. This one's really great. It's really fun with the squad with the Bro Cap because he's giving them lethals. Lethals on 5 with a Timbrick of Paladins or Terminators. Forewarned Evasion, a GK Walker unit. An opponent shooting or fight phase after being targeted, -1 to hit for the phase. It's a nice little survivability strat for NDKs. Sure. I don't really want to be taking NDKs right now, to be honest with you guys, but at -1 to hit is good for NDK surviving. Like maybe there's one guard tank that can see it, something like that. So it is a nice thing to have. It's not a bad stratagem, I'd say. Unnecessary End, 1 CP, and GK infantry unit fight phase after being selected as a target. You fight on death if you roll a d6 greater than the current battle round number. Fight on death is good. It's weird that late in the game you'll have to roll a 6 for it, but it's better than having to roll a 4+ for it all game. In turn 1 to fight on death, you only have to roll a 2. In turn 2, you only have to roll a 3. In turn 3, it's that breakpoint, it's that 4+. And then turns 4 and 5, you're kind of getting fucked having to roll 5s and 6s. But it's nice. It is flavorful. I think it's a good one. Redirected Strike, 1 CP, put 1 GK unit into reserves into your command phase. That's great. This essentially lets you do this turn 1 because the detachment rule only starts in turn 2, where you do it at the end of your command phase, start movement phase. This will let you uppy downy your strike squad on home in turn 1, even if you go first. Put it somewhere else. This will also put it somewhere else turn 1 even. This will also let you. Oh, that's nice. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. If you go first, you can use this to deep strike something turn 1. That's very cool because it starts on the board. And then every turn 2, every time onwards, it lets you just, uppy downy other stuff. It lets you uppy downy 2 units, one from this spinning this, and one from the detachment rule after you've already drawn your secondary cards. Mirage of Echoes, 1 CP, a GK Psyker unit. Go back into reserves after an enemy has arrived from reinforcements within 12 inches. So this is like a diet miss, but it's substantially worse. It's great tool against Death Shroud Terminators, deep striking 6 to charge something. Maybe an objective that's sticky, then you're gone. Then they can't charge anything, and you have that objective until your turn. But the caveat there is if they drop a unit and they have more that's deep striking and you pick something up off an objective, they just drop their next unit on the objective. So it's okay. It's definitely not as good as actual mists. Now that I think about it, redirected strike is actually more powerful than I thought for that turn 1 deep strike. I hadn't really thought about that. That's just like, you draw engage on all fronts, you don't really deploy it, up and down your strike squad, engage on all fronts turn 1, whatever you need. So that's really nice. Also, you don't have to have a unit that is available to shoot the gap necessarily, because if you need to go get area denial and cleanse in the middle, up and down your turn 1, top of turn 1, pretty powerful. Thoughts on this? Like I said, that's not here, but that redirected strike, very powerful. Now that I see the entire toolkit, I do think this attachment is not as strong as I first thought it would be, though. There's not a lot more tricks than I thought there'd be. I thought there'd be a lot more stuff that it like plays off of Grey Knights being teleporting and tricky. All of that kind of ended up being in the preview. There's a build here for spamming strike squads and gunking your opponent up, move blocking big strike squads, dying for sticky objectives. However, there's not really many other tricks that I can see. You'll definitely have one big brick of paladins with your bro cap ready to make a charge at some point, and crit on fives. But after that, they're out there and they're dying. You don't have mists to save them. You only have a thing about reinforcements to save them. You have really no defensive buffs for them. No other units is really going to get value out of crits on five who doesn't have a bro cap in them. And besides that, you're just uppy downing all over the board, not really getting increases in survivability, not really having as good a runaway tactic as we had in Mists, which does exist in another attachment, essentially, exact Mist. And you're not really buffing any other units, offensive capabilities besides that one central bro cap unit. So Greenwood Conjunction is a cool enhancement, but I would give this a C tier. Just Banisher has actual mist. We'll get into that. Banisher's my favorite attachment. Has actual exact miss of Damas for a 9-inch reactive movement into deep strike reserves. And it also has a 12-inch no reserves bubble strat. So it's got just better tricks. This one's trying to be super tricky, but I think Banisher's tricks are actually better, and it has better damage buffs as well. So a C tier for the Augurium Task Force to the Prussian Brethren. All right, Saint Spearhead. This is allegedly the Draenei detachment, so I'll put the baby carrier up there. Detachment rule: Mailed Fist. Vehicles auto advance 6 and get assault. Cool. Enhancements: Driven by Duty. A Grey Knight's Walker. Pile and consolidate 6 inches. Who cares? Quickening Fool. Infantry model. While this unit disembarks from a transport, reroll charges. Who cares? You're disembarking from a land raider. You're probably close. Sigil of Exigence. It's the same as before. It's great. Spiritus Machina, an infantry model, bears units reroll hits and shooting on a turn they disembark from transport. It's okay on paladins, but they already hit on 2s. It's okay on you can't use it on purifiers because it's an enhancement, so you can't use it on purifiers. Only Crow can lead them. Application units is not taken on. You can take it on a squad of 5 paladins, not 10s, because 10s cannot fit in a transport. It's trash. Stratagems: True Silver Will, 1 CP. A Grey Knight Psyker vehicle gets a 4+ feel and pain to mortal wounds. Situational. Whatever. Abominus class target. This is the whole detachment here. In the shooting or fight phase, +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. Now, essentially, this doesn't matter much for NDKs. We talked about the GMDK using this for 6 damage into a Lehman Russ and shooting. But this makes a huge difference for Land Raiders, which average 12 damage into a Lehman with this strat, and have a 47% chance to kill one by themselves when using it. Land Raiders also get increased damage into Big Knights with this strat, and then you bring the Purifiers out of them in charge, and they do 20 damage, and that kills a Big Knight. We'll talk about that in a sec. But this Abominus class targets stratagem, along with the maneuverability that this detachment, funnily enough, gives Land Raiders to allow Land Raiders to play a normal game of 40k, actually makes this detachment for me, and we'll get into it in a sec. Armored Aegis, a GK Psyker vehicle, gains 3 wounds. That's nice on a Dread Knight, sure. Redoubled Assault, 1 CP, a GK vehicle unit, fall back and shoot. Huge for Land Raiders, good for GMDKs and Vindreads. Force Wave, 1 CP, GK vehicle, move or charge, Kool-Aid Man through a wall. So good for Land Raiders. You can finally put a Land Raider behind the L on layout run and move it through the gap to take middle, full of 10 Purifiers, and nuke a Giant Knight. This is what makes this attachment. There are so many spots to deploy Land Raiders on the board if you can assume that you can move them through walls. On layout 1 alone, you put one in the home L, you put one behind the top behind your expansion. Turn 1, you can move to your expansion. Turns 2 or 3, whenever there's a big thing on the home L, shoot the gap, nuke. Saint Spearhead is, unfortunately, because I don't like vehicle spam, but the best detachment we have, not because of Dread Knights, funnily enough, but because of the maneuverability it gives to Land Raiders, allowing them to actually play a competitive game of Warhammer 40k on GW terrain. Argent Wrath, 1 CP, a GK vehicle unit with an into charge move, cause a battle shock and every move 3 at -1, whatever. So yeah, basically you're going to use Force Wave and you're going to use the bonus class targets as much as you can. While it can seem underwhelming, I do think it's the strongest attachment against the current Knight meta. Combo Land Raiders plus Crowifiers, not Crowagears, I don't know why it says that, versus Canis Rex on objective. Here's the breakdown. Land Raiders shooting with +1 to wound, 10 damage. Crowifiers with +1 to wound and melee, rerolling their wounds because Canis is on an objective, 21 damage. that overkills Canis 31 to 26 by 5 points on average. It's pretty reliable. Crow with no purifiers, 16 damage. That kills Canis exactly. A Land Raider with Crow but no purifiers kills Canis exactly on average. And this is not including any of the purifier shooting with Crow or not. This is our melee loaded purifiers. We're not including purifier shooting. We're not including throwing a grenade. This is probably the best combo, including in Warpbane, including a previous Warpbane in the current meta we're in before all these changes, that we've had its entire Knight's meta to kill a Knight. All you need is one Land Raider moving through a wall, potentially, and one unit of purifiers. Some +1 to wounds in there. You gotta have some CP to do it, but it's a guaranteed 2-unit combo to bring a big Knight down. It's pretty sick. Unfortunately, of course, into Lancers with their 4 melee info, these maths do not math still. So fuck Lancers. Move that 4 up to a 5 up, James. It needs to go. But Purifiers Land Raiders are best hope in the current meta, especially now that Land Raiders can move through walls. I think the NDKs and June NDKs, are not as important in this attachment, unfortunately, because of where we are in the meta. If that changes, if we change out 4 big Knights, go down to maybe like 2 big Knights, we could see Gene NDKs and NDKs being really nice in this attachment. But right now, I think the list here is 3 Land Raiders full of 10 Purifiers each, 1 with Crow, 2 Vendreads to up you down, do actions and augment the Land Raiders where they can, and 1 Strike Squad. That's 1990 in current points. So that's pretty much going to beat the list right there. I'm going to give it an A tier. It's not S tier because it's still going to struggle into big Knights, but A tier because it is the best option we currently have. All right, detachment, Banishers. This one's my fave. This one is an S tier in my heart. And what a great name, Banishers. Attachment rule, you do light packs. It's not called light packs. You do a leadership test, but you do light packs, praise the Emperor, in the fight phase for sustain your lethals. We did it. We did it, boys. We're doing prayers. We're doing Grey Knight stuff. So we can finally, the CSM are not the only one who can pray to their deity for sustain or lethals. We could do it too, albeit we only do it in the fight phase. I don't know why they didn't give it to us in shooting as well. They just hate us, but at least we get it. I think it's very nice. It's a very nice damage buff. Very nice. So here's to Channeled Force, our attachment rule in the best attachment, the funnest attachment, maybe not the best, Banishers. All right, enhancements and Banishers. Driven by duty, Grey Knight's models. Reroll hit rolls of 1 shooting. Meh, again, doesn't matter. Crow can't take it. That's the squad that would benefit the most. It's okay on a GMNDK, but really it's bullshit. Ephemeral Tome, infantry model. Start your shooting phase. If you're not in the damage range, move up to D6 inches, and then you're no longer eligible to charge. It's kind of nice, but again, the D6 inches is just too unreliable. I probably won't take this one either. It needs to be a flat number. I don't care what number it is, but these shoot and scoots need to be a flat number in order to be valuable because you have to be able to plan around them to not get hung out to dry. 66 Seal. This one's cute. This one's fun. A Grey Knight's model. In your shooting phase, improve all the attacks of the bear's unit's AP by 1. Huh? So this one's really interesting. This is the funny thing I talk about the Bro Champs. You stick a Bro Champ on a Purgation Squad and put them in a Razorback. They're getting +2 AP on the turn they hop out with this enhancement and with the Razorbacks rule against some of the Razorback shoots. So you're looking at AP3 Ignore Cover Incinerators or AP3 Side Cannons. Now that's still about the current meta only does 6 damage to an Armiger with either. So it's not worth it. But if we go back to an infantry meta, 4d6 AP3 Flamers is a hell of a chaff clearing unit. So here's hoping to that coming back, and then this one and the Bro Champ might see some play. Right now, currently though, I am planning on sticking this on my Bro Cap, leading my 10 Paladins, because those 6 side cannons, 5 from the squad, 1 with Bro Cap, go up to AP2, and that is actually really really nice. It's not it just is. It's just really nice. And if you have the points for it, you should just stick it on him for now. Pyre Soul. GK model only start the shooting phase. A visibly enemy unit within 24 inches automatically suffers D3 mortal wounds. Now that's fucking nice. No roll required. Just I see you, D3 mortal wounds. It's fun. It doesn't, move the needle anything that much, but it's one of those ones that's like, obviously, it's just something that's good. If I have the 10 or 15 points for it left over my list or however much it costs, I'll throw it in. You shouldn't plan around it, but if you find yourself with some points to spare, definitely throw it on whoever can have it. It's good for everyone. All right, the stratagems. Hexshot Reprisal. A Grey Knight's unit that took mortals at the end of any phase. Do the mortals back to the enemy on 2 pluses for each mortal when you take. You roll a d6, and on 2 plus, they take it back up to 6. Now, it's good to clap back in a tank shock, but it's not very good against shooting phase mortals because, or even dev wounds and melee, honestly, if we're being honest, because if they kill your unit, you can't do it back. It's not right after you take the mortals. It's not after the activation where you take the mortals. It's at the end of the phase. So if Typhus, and I said this in the last video, but Typhus goes off and does 8 mortal wounds to a squad, there's one guy left alive, you cannot pop this stratagem to do those 8 mortal wounds, to do 6 mortal wounds back to Typhus and kill him. Instead, your opponent can fucking shoot that one guy to death with whatever bits and pieces he has, and then he's not eligible to do this stratagem because he has to be on the board at the end of the phase. Warding Chant, 1 CP, Grey Knight Psyker unit. Opponent shooting her phase or the fight phase that has been selected as target, get a 5+ feel no pain to attacks with damage carriers of 1. Why couldn't it just be a 5 feel no pain? Why do we have to only do damage 1? You know, it's super situational. It's only really worth it against like units like AdMech Infiltrators or whatever that have those power swords that are AP 3 damage 1, but they have a million attacks. Besides that, you know, there's not a lot of situations where it's going to really do something for you. Chaos Bane. Now, this one's fun. It's not that good, but it's fun as fuck. Grey Knight Psyker unit shooting phase. Just every gun gets anti-chaos 4+. So my takeaway is fuck the traitors, baby. With this strat, the and plus and a Vindred +1 to hit. Crow fires are doing 17 damage. This is with side cannons, but they're doing 17 damage to a Chaos Knight with a 4+ invul, or 19 damage to a Chaos Knight with a 5+ invul in one shooting activation with this ridiculous stratagem. It's fucking amazing. Hilarious. Celerity, 1 CP, infantry unit, charge phase, advance and charge. The takeaway, yeah, this is a good one. We are still relying on large 10-man melee units to kill knights in melee. It's really our only option to do it. So an advance and charge strat is very nice. You're inside of a rhino with 10 purifiers and crow. You pop out 3 inches. You move your 6 inches. You roll an average of 3 inches on the advance. You've just moved a total of 12 inches with crow and 10 purifiers to then do 20 damage with your lethals. I think it's actually 18, but 18 damage with your lethals plus wound rerolls into a knight in melee. It's honestly, it's a great stratagem to have, especially for where we're at as a faction, where we have to get into melee to kill big things. We can't do it in shooting. Circle of Sanctuary, 1 CP. The opponent starts the opponent's movement phase. 1 GK character from your army until the end of the phase. That model gets a 12-inch bow and no reinforcement. It's a really good strat. It opens up play for a solo bro champ on home to guard home and just chill and then pop that every turn. Unfortunately, like we were talking about earlier, the only really character you're going to take in every detachment is Crow, or in most detachments, is Crow and the Bro Cap. And both those guys are going to have to be moving up the board, killing themselves to trade against big pieces. So unless you have the points left over for some bullshit guy to sit at home, maybe there's a time where you can pop this on your Bro Cap's unit and it avoids him getting charged from DST off an objective. Maybe there's a time where it makes sense to pop this on Crow and in the mid-board right after he's flipped his objective. But you're not going to be able to use it to predict your home because we're not going to have like a plethora of characters available to us. It'd be nice to do in Warpbane because then Crow can use it and then go uppy downy later and 6-inch charge something. But in this attachment and all of these attachments, we have no tools now that Kaldor's gone and there's no 6-inch deep strike thing and anything but Warpbane that lets you charge. We have no tools outside conventional move up the board or rapid ingress to get easy good charges. That's a big flaw in this codex, but you know, it's a nice back to Circle of Sanctuary. It's a nice stratagem. Unless we get points drops and you can afford a solo character to use it on home, you're probably not going to be popping it that much. But it could come up against Death Guard. Shadow of Anarch, 1 CP. Best stratagem in the Codex, it's just Miscedemus. It's exactly Miscedemus. Enemy unit finishes any kind of movement within 9 inches of you, you're in the warp, or you move up to 6 inches. Woo! We're back, baby. We now have a damage buff detachment from the Lethal to Sustained that has Miscedemus. Cheers. This is pretty much the reason this is my favorite detachment. I've missed Miscedemus so much since Teleport Strike Force died. It's going to be back. Banishers is definitely the second best detachment next to the vehicle one. If we change meta, it could win some tournaments. It's probably like a 3-2 detachment right now. But, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in the future? I love Miscedemus. I love Lethal, so I'm going to play it. My thoughts, whatever my thoughts. In Spirit, it says an A. I actually give it an S tier in Spirit, but until Knight's meta, it's gone. It's a B and maybe even a C, but I'm going to give it a B because I like it so much. And then we actually have a breakdown here. In Banishers, I'll show you this. In Banishers, all melee crow fires with lethals do 18 damage into a knight on objective with a 5+ invul or no combat invul. But in Sanctic, the crow fires do 21 damage to that same knight. And actually, I found out after I wrote this in Warpbane right now, and I knew this because that's how I built my list around originally before I include Kaldor. Crow fires do 20 damage with Sanctified Kill Zone and have like a lot of, they can just 6 deep strike and get to the knight. So there is Banishers does have less of a damage buff than Warpbane. All right, but I'll caveat this with this, but you also get Mist of Deimos in Banishers. So you a little give and a little take. I like Banishers. I'm gonna be running it. All right, Detachment, Hollowed Conclave. Now, this is the Terminator attachment. I'm just gonna breeze through this one because I think it's ass. I know specifically one of my boys thinks it's got play, but I think this one's ass. Duty before all, Terminator keywords. So Paladins too. Yeah, so Terminator keyword units, which includes Paladins, can fall back and charge. My thing about this is, yeah, fall back and charge is cool, but the problem with Terminators and building an entire detachment around Terminators is that you have a big unit of Terminators, you have to charge something that's in front. It's almost always a trade down, even against a big knight with our points cost. That's a trade down. If the Terminators kill the thing, you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere. If the Terminators don't kill the thing falls back. Either way, you're in a shooting lane, you get shot to death. That's problem one. Problem two is that Terminators are slow. You have to take Terminators and Land Raiders to make them faster. Or you have to let Terminators get +3 on the charge like KALDOR DRAIGO used to do, RIP. Or you have to let Terminators 6-inch deep strike and still charge, which they don't do anywhere in this codex. So you have a bunch of Terminators moving 5 inches up the board. One big unit can do a Revenant Ingress. That's great. One unit. The rest of your army is moving 5 inches or running 5 plus d6 inches to spots where they get shot. Uppy downying to places your opponent allows you to do so, which will not be good places. And then your detachment rule is fall back and charge. It doesn't solve any of the problems of trying to run a Terminator only list. Looking at the enhancements, I have the Augurium, a Grey Knight's model. Once for battle round, you can target the bear's unit with the Overwatch or Heroic Invention for 0 CP. There's no one good to take this on for Overwatch, and the Heroic Intervention is nice, but really it just saves you 1 CP on 1 Heroic Intervention, unless you can like somehow big brain yourself into a situation where you get off 2 Heroic Interventions, and this one's the second one, which would be like the max value of it. It's just saving you like 1 or 2 CP for the game at most. It's kind of ass, just like the rest of this attachment. Inescapable Judgment, GK model. Each time an enemy unit falls back from the barrel on 2-5 that suffer D3 mortals, on a 6 tough D3 plus 3 mortals. It's fine. D3 mortal wounds is nice, but again, they fall back, they take D3 mortals, and then you're shot to death because you're a Terminator that charged into a firing lane. Saintic Reaper, Terminator model only, add 3 to attack carriers of the bear's melee units, melee weapons, of the bear's melee weapons. So this is not as good of a wombo combo as the Greenmore Conjunctions. However, it is +3 attacks all the time, not just once per game. So here you're getting 11 attacks at weapons within the turn that you use the additional +3 from the GM. Goes up to 11 attacks. Weapon skill 2+ is still just strength 6, AP 3 damage 2, or AP 2 damage 2, depending on where you're targeting with the Terminator unit. It's not as good as the Greenmore, and it's kind of the same thing. Greenmore brings you up to strength 13. Nemesis rounds. GK Terminator, fire Overwatch for their unit hitting on 5s. It's cute on a Timbrick of Paladins, but it's not good. It's still not like one of the most cracked Overwatches in the game. It's not worth taking. Stratagems, Giants in the Battlefield, Terminator unit, fight phase, +1 attacks for all melee weapons. This is actually a really good stratagem. I'm not talking shit about Giants in the Battlefield. This is a huge major damage buff. +1 attack a piece. It's +10 attacks for a 10 brick. But like I said, it doesn't solve the problem of what happens after that one fighting activation where you trade down. So it doesn't do anything for me. Unending Fidelity, 1 CP, GK infantry unit, opponent shooting your fight phase once targeted, 4+ fight or shoot on death. It's okay. A 4+ fight on death strat is 50-50. And in late game, it's better than the one we saw in the Prescient Brotherhood one at the beginning of the game where you only have to roll a 2 or a 3. It's worse. So it's an average fight on death strat. I've seen them go good. I've seen them go bad. Point Blank Purgation, a GK infantry unit. Stormbolters get pistol in Twin Weak. It's cute. Situationally, it'll ungunk your termies from a melee with like a horde of infantry and they get charged something else, but practically it's never going to matter, especially in current meta, which is all vehicles. Grind them on the foot, turn me tank shock, fucking trash, garbage, turn me tank shock strats suck. Precognitive strategies, 1 CP, GK infantry, opponent's phase. You get a D6 reactive move to some of the moves with the 9 inches, but you can't go back into reserves. Literally just all debrand Mist Demos, absolute garbage. Give me my Mists, let me play Banishers, give me my Mists, period. And I'll cheers to that. Alright, Shining Resolve, 1 CP, GK infantry, opponent shooting phase after being targeted. Minus 22 strength, and toughness. Okay, it's good. It's a good thing to have on tap. That is a nice defensive bonus. Try to scheme the lab when they do get stuck in the shooting lane, but probably not, usually not enough. My thoughts are, for some reason, every Terminator attachment GW has tried to write into the edition has been a flop. The Dark Angels one, the First Coming Task Force and False Space Marines, the fucking new one in the Death Guard. I don't know if I've ever even seen anyone play it. And this is no different. The +1 attack and melee strat is great built for offense, and -1 to wound and strength toughness is good for defense, but it doesn't do anything to address the critical problems of Terminator lists trading down into front screen units and then being stuck in firing lanes and blasted off the board. Terminators are really cool. They're also better in every other detachment in this book. F tier detachment. Absolute worst in the book. All right. Last detachment, I think. Brotherhood Strike. This one is sold as like the Index Teleport Strike Force attachment, but it is honestly entirely different. Fury of Titan is the army rule. Once you arrive from deep strike, reroll one to hit and wound. On turns you arrive from deep strike, reroll ones to hit and wound. Now, that's good for Dread Knight shooting. The Dread Knight shooting profile is not a good profile right now into the current meta. And I'm just going to go ahead and flash forward. This detachment does not give you any tools to make a 9-inch deep strike less of a charge than 9 inches. Neither this attachment nor any of the data sheets do anything to plus any modifiers onto your 9-inch deep strike charge. So the only way you're going to reroll once to hit and wound and melee in this attachment is if you, in your movement phase, no rapid ingress, deep strike 9 inches away, and then make a 9-inch charge into your opponent, which with a reroll is only a 47% success rate, less than half the time that's going to work for you. And we're a melee army that can only kill big knights in melee. Cheers. Enhancements, Banishing Wave. GK model, each time you arrive using Deep Strike, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 1 inch, and on a 2 for 5, they suffer 1 mortal wound. On 6, they suffer D3. It's cute. You could do it on a little bro champ and drop him by your enemy and do 1 mortal wounds to a few things before you die immediately, but unless you're at 1990 points and this is a 10-point enhancement, I don't think you really use this one. One mortal wound is what? It's not going to do anything. You only get D3 on a 6. It's pretty crazy. It should be at D3 on a 2 through 5. It'd be awesome to drop for a D3, 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 but dropping and being like, one, doesn't fucking matter. Blinding Aura, GK model. Each time the bearer's unit is set up from deep strike, the opponent can't overwatch them. Again, this would be good if we had a plus to charge unit from deep strike on something, but as is, the only unit that it really matters on would be a GMNDK. That's the only unit that can take an enhancement that you would drop somewhere to shoot something. So your GMNDK cannot get overwatched. So great. Purity of Purpose, GK model. When the bearer's unit set up from deep strike, reroll charge rolls. Again, this just gives you a free CP reroll and then improving your 9-inch charge success to 47% without spending a CP. Still losing, still sub 50%. No bueno. Tome of Forbidden Ways. While bearer is on the battlefield or in strat reserve, add 1 to the number of units you can gain Infinity. That's actually really good. You can pick up and down 4 units in your first Gate of Infinity activation and redeploy it wherever you want. It's amazing. However, I will say, it only matters the first time you do it. After your first activation for Gate of Infinity, whether that's in turn 1 at the bottom or turn 2 at the top, you're probably already in a position where 3 is going to cover it for you. However, I would say out of all the enhancements in Brotherhood Strength, this one's definitely the best. True Silver Channeling Stratagems, 2 CP. Fight phase. GK unit, infantry unit accepted to fight this phase gets dev wounds. It would be clutch if this could go on Crow and the Purifiers in shooting. As is, it can't. And so when you pop this on your Purifiers for 1 CP, if you don't re-roll the 5s, you keep the 5s, Wounding Indicatus Rex, and you re-roll everything else, you end up with 18 damage against Canis Rex, which is the same damage you end up on objectives, the same damage you end with just from the lethals and being on objectives in Banisher. And if you reroll the 5s as well, fishing for only devs, you actually get less, 16 according to Unit Crunch. And again, I'm just going to preface this that Warp Bane Purifiers get 20. So this is less good than Warp Bane. It's less good than Sanctic. And it is the same at most as Banishers, although in Banishers you don't have to spend a CP to do it. 2 CP, in fact. 2 CP. So yeah, fuck that. Combat Manifestation, 1 CP. GK movement, unit movement phase. Arrive from deep strike, 6-inch deep strike, and you can't charge. Whatever. 6 inches does not steal an objective. When this was a 3-inch deep strike, I was stealing objectives with the Terminators. Now that it's 6, it's not going to happen. Yeah, it says 3 in the Codex, but it's the exact wording that falls under the errata. So it will, guys. I know it says 3, but it falls under the existing errata. It will be a 6-inch deep strike and no charge. Again, just like in Teleport Strike Force right now for this attachment. Kind of a trash rule. Purgation Pattern, 1 CP. GK unit from your army set up with deep strike gets sustained 1 in shooting. Cool. It's okay for Crow and the Purifiers. It's not worth anything else. Duty Unending, GK unit movement phase. After the enemy unit falls back from them, you can go back to reserve. So this is good. This is like something they should have had in the fucking Terminator attachment. If a unit falls back from you after you kind of get into them, but you don't kill them all the way, you can go back up into reserve. So that saves you there. Shining Veil, 1 CP. A GK unit targeted by an attack. And also about Duty Unending, the thing about that is units that have less than 9 inches of movement, Mists of Deimos, or these Mists of Deimos replaced, whatever it's called, in Banishers covers this anyways and also covers a lot of other things. So that one is still better than this one, but it's better than nothing. It's a common situation to get in a fight phase, get fall back from, get blown off the map. This will save you from that. Shining Veil, 1 CP, GK unit targeted by attacking shooting phase, get stealth for the phase. It's good. You know, we have one in AUGURIUM that only applied to NDKs. This one can apply to NDKs and also anyone else. So it's good to get stealth. Expeditious Exit, this one's fun. 2 CP, enter the opponent's fight phase, 1 Grey Knight Psyker infantry unit goes into reserves, even if it was engaged. Again, perfect stratagem to put in the Terminator attachment GW. But it can come in clutch. 2 CP always hurts, but again, you charge something, it's the end of the fight phase, you got to get out of there. 2 CP, you're out of there. Saves your ass. Overall, you know, if we weren't in Knights meta, this would be a great 6 NDK detachment. To people around the battlefield, reroll once to hit and wounds. But, you know, this attachment really loves to like tout melee benefits to infantry units that make 9-inch charges out of deep strike, but it gives nothing, absolutely nothing to help them make those charges in any significant way. I'll put it at a D tier with the potential to bump it to a B tier if the meta changes, but at that point it would only be as an NDK spam list, not as in the detachment is trying to be. That's like, ooh, Grey Knights, they teleport and then they make their charges every time. Look at me. We all know that doesn't happen. How many times did you make the 9-inch charge out of deep strike? I never fucking make it. So it's an NDK spam attachment at its best. Right now, it's probably not that playable. D tier currently, moving into B tier if the meta changes. All right, summary and ranking. Satic Spearhead, A tier. Reason? This is the only build where we have a higher damage output specifically against big knights, albeit with jumping through the hoops and moving the lane raiders through walls and shit, than in Warpbane. It's the only one. Besides that, Warpbane is honestly probably better into the current Knights meta, although I'm going to play the shit out of Banishers. We're playing the new shit, don't worry, on the channel. But yeah, Satic Spearhead, A tier. Potential build, currently I'm thinking for this one, 3 Land Raiders, 30 Purifiers to gun Land Raiders, only characters Crowley, one of those 10s, 2 Vendreads, and a Strike Squad. That's 1990 currently. And if you guys don't watch the channel, I probably should have saved this. Go ahead and check out the channel. We usually do battle reports. I'm just a GK player, so I'm covering the GK Codex. But we have a lot of battle reports on the channel. We do battle reports all the time. We'll have a lot of Grey Knights battle reports for every detachment in this book. I'm going to try it, honestly. Coming out as soon as I get the Codex and get all my stuff ready for it. And we have a lot of other guys in the channels too. You know, we got a lot of Necrons, we got Death Guard, we got a lot of Dark Angels, a little bit of Imperial Guard that I play as well as my secondary army. We're getting CSM soon. That'll be cool. And a little bit of Blood Angels as well. Maybe some GSC coming in the future. Andrew Kari, that's also on the way. So yeah, like and subscribe, guys. I'm gonna keep talking the rest of this, but go ahead. I started this at the beginning, obviously, but shoot me a like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers in the year so we can monetize. That would really help us out a lot. And yeah, appreciate you guys watching this long. If you've stuck with us, cheers to you. All right, Banishers. Woo! B tier. This was my favorite. It's S tier to me. It really improves the GK melee blending units, and it has real Mistademos, which is fucking sick. And I also really like the auto D3 mortal wound enhancement. Hopefully that's like a 10.1, and you just stick it in every list. It's fucking awesome. And in my opinion, this is the best attachment for Paladins and Terminators. So my potential build with this is a Bro Cap with the 66 seals to give his 10-man Paladin unit AP2 on all their side cannons and AP1 on all their storm bolters. Just lots of Daka. Crow with 3x10 purifiers. So Crow's leading one of them. They're all ticketed for melee, though, of course, to kill big knights. 2 rhinos for 2 of the purifier squads. So that's all I can fit in the list at current points. We'll see if points change. A 1x10 strike squad. I'm thinking that one scouts forward or uppy downies to get the expansion objective and just sit there and put a lot of OC on there. I have something still in my current warp lane list, although they have a bro cap, so that's better because they can fight first, and they're also in a rhino. So the rhino can scout. Well, the rhino can't scout, but the rhino can get them there for sure. Either way, 1x10 strike squads right now, maybe split into 2 5s. I'll have to see how the play goes. They have 1x5s, another 1x5 strike squad starting home, and 1x5 interceptors to skirmish with their lethals and get secondaries and shit like that. Augurium C tier. I like this one's tricks, but it just doesn't have real Miscedaemos. It has Diet Miscedaemos a few times. Banishers does have Miscedaemos and also does more for the boys offensively. If we get big points cuts to strike squads, you could have a lot of fun on Augurium and a lot of success running an uppy downy shenanigan OC and bodies attachment for power armor guys. But as is, I think the strikes are probably too expensive to really work. I think you would need something like 65 to 80 strike marines for this to really slap as like a horde detachment, and you just can't do that right now. There's no way to get the points to work. So potential build for this right now as is, and with current day points, we don't know the new points yet. I don't know, like definitely a Grandmaster with Greenmore and 4 Termies because that enhancement's awesome. A Bro Cap with 10 Paladins because you can do the crits on 5s, and the rest of the space just fill up with as many fucking strike squads as you can take. It honestly at that point might be like 3, but go ahead and fill it up. Brotherhood Strike D tier, with potential to go to B tier if the meta changes. But if NDK shooting were strong in the meta, this would be a really good attachment, but it just flatly isn't. There's no need to go into that again. We talked about how disappointing it is that it just expects you to be able to make 9 charges out of Deep Strike, and then as an enhancement for a reroll instead of a +1. I think the +1 or a +2 to charge enhancement would actually be a lot better than a reroll enhancement out of Deep Strike as far as percentages. I'm pretty sure a 7 is better than 47%. But at any rate, potential build here, 6 NDKs a strike squad and whatever else you can fit, maybe some Vindreds. Hollowed Conclave F tier, just absolute garbage. Another bad Terminator attachment for 10th edition from the big brands of the boys over in the UK. The UK. Potential build here, 30 Paladins, I guess. Whatever. It's not usable. And that's it. That's the Codex, y'all. Again, like and subscribe. I've been Justicar Lager. RIP K-Dog. Fuck Voldis. Hashtag not my Supreme Grandmaster. See you next time on Drunk Vulture.